Welcome back to our subclass comparison series. We have an interesting one for you today as we are looking at the DC20 Jester Bard. This is the first of several DC20 subclasses that does not have a flavor or mechanical comparison to D&D 5th edition. Some had suggested using the Trickery domain cleric, which, looking at the names Trickery and Jester, it sounds okay, but in the end I decided that the best thing to do was to go over the Jester's abilities and try to find if they exist across D&D 5e. With that, let's dive into the Jester. The first ability that you're going to get as a Jester is Heckle. Once per round, when a creature of your choice within your bardic performance fails a save, they're taunted by you on the next attack they make before the end of their next turn. As we talked about in the Ancestral Barbarian video, link above in the card, taunt is a very common thing in DC20, but it's less common in D&D. Here are most of the common ways to achieve a taunt in D&D 5e. Spellcasters have access to the spell Compel Duel. As discussed, the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian can taunt a creature they hit with an attack. The Armorer Artificer and Cavalier Fighter have a similar ability, taunting creatures they hit with attacks. Finally, the Battlemaster Fighter has a maneuver called Goading Attack that also taunts. Next, let's look at Distraction. When a hostile creature within 10 spaces of you makes an attack, you can spend one action point as a reaction to roll a help die and subtract the result from the target's check. This reminds me of the Lore Bard's Cutting Words. Also at 3rd level, you learn how to use your wit to distract, confuse, and otherwise sap the confidence and competence of others. When a creature that you can see within 60 feet of you makes an attack roll, an ability check, or a damage roll, you can use your reaction to expend one use of Bardic Inspiration, rolling a Bardic Inspiration die and subtracting the number rolled from the creature's roll. You can use this feature after the creature makes its roll, but before the DM determines whether the attack or ability check succeeds or fails, or before the creature deals its damage. The creature is immune if it can't hear you, or if it's immune to being charmed. As you can see, they both cut enemies' attacks. The Lore Bard was the best mechanical comparison, but matching one of 3 features and not having a comparable flavor led me to do this comparison instead of a direct one. Finally, we have Pratfall. When you fail a save imposed by a hostile creature, you can grant a creature within your bardic performance advantage on a check of their choice before the end of their next turn. There was no D&D feature that I could find that was comparable to Pratfall. If I missed one, please let me know in the comments. Now let's tie all 3 features together. On the screen right now, there's a graphic that breaks the 3 Jester features of Heckle, Distraction, and Pratfall down into their usages, requirements, triggers, abilities, and their 5e comparisons. It's interesting to note that all 3 abilities function slightly different from each other in all of these categories. So when we look at usages, Heckle can be used once per round. Distraction, you can use as long as you have action points to spend on it. And Pratfall, you can use an unlimited amount of times. It's kind of a passive, automatically happens. For the requirements, Heckle requires that your bardic performance is active, as does Pratfall. Distraction does not require that you have an active bardic performance, though the target does still need to be within the 10 spaces that your bardic performance would encompass. For triggers, Heckle requires a creature failing a saving throw, Distraction requires a hostile creature making an attack, and Pratfall requires you failing a saving throw. For the ability, Heckle causes the target to be taunted by you for their next attack, Distraction, you roll a help die as a penalty to their attack, and Pratfall, you grant a creature advantage on a check. For 5e comparisons, Heckle being a taunt, there was the as aforementioned 5e features that taunt, such as Compel Duel, Ancestral Guardian's Barbarian ability, Cavalier Fighter ability, the Battlemaster Fighter's maneuver, and the Armorer Artificer's attack. Distraction, the Lore Bard's Cutting Words is very close to what Distraction does. Granted that the Cutting Words does affect more than just attack rolls, it also can cut ability checks and damage. Pratfall has no comparison that I could find in 5th edition. One last thing about this chart before we move on to final thoughts. If you're playing a Jester Bard, you are definitely going to have to pay attention for the requirements of your 3 features and look for the things that trigger them, because each one has very different usages, requirements, and triggers. And now for the final thoughts. The Jester Bard captures the flavor that you would expect from a court jester. The mechanics of the 3 features interact well with DC20's rules, allowing you to embody the fantasy of being a jester while being an impactful support character, which the Bard class strives for. If you wanted to play a Bard subclass that is not possible in D&D 5e, you can't go wrong with the Jester. Thank you for watching this video. Please consider liking, subscribing if you haven't already, and hit the bell so you know when we upload new content. Next week, we will look at our first DC20 Champion subclass, the Hero, and we'll be comparing it to the D&D 5e Champion Fighter. Until then, keep rolling with us.